All right, let's get ready to dive deep into something I think we all think about a lot, talk about, and honestly, sometimes maybe stress about money.
It's definitely a topic that touches every part of our lives,
It really does.
wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for this deep dive, we're taking a bit of an unusual approach.
Oh.
Our source material is a conversation between two friends.
Okay.
And get this, they're from a Learn English podcast on YouTube.
Interesting. It's amazing where we can find these insightful conversations these days, right?
Right, exactly.
Ever know.
So these friends, Marco and Zara,
Okay.
they weren't just, practicing their English. They actually got into some really deep, thought-provoking questions
Yeah.
about money and its role in our lives.
I see.
Like, can money actually buy happiness?
Right.
Is it more important than love?
Mm-hmm.
How does it shape our choices,
Right.
the relationships we build?
Those are questions that have probably crossed all of our minds at some point.
Absolutely. So let's start with their thoughts on money and happiness.
Okay.
Both Marco and Zara seem to agree that while money may not directly buy happiness, it definitely makes life easier.
Yeah.
Zara actually shared a story that really highlights this point.
Oh, what happened?
So she had to leave school because of financial difficulties
Wow.
when her family moved to a new city.
Oh, no.
Her dad lost his job, and they just couldn't make ends meet.
That's hard. Oh.
It's a powerful reminder of how money, or the lack of it, can impact our opportunities and dreams.
Yeah, it's not just about, having luxuries. It's about having the basic security to pursue our goals.
Exactly.
I think what's interesting here is that even though she faced those challenges, Zara still has these incredibly ambitious dreams.
Yes.
She wants to be an entrepreneur. She
Yes,
wants
sir.
to start a school for underprivileged children. Like,
Wow.
very driven, but also realistic about how financial hardship can really get in the way.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes Marco's next point even more powerful.
Okay.
He brings up this really sobering statistic that around 9 million people die each year from hunger and related illnesses.
That's a staggering number.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
He talks about, if you had enough money, you could travel the world, experience so many things, really live your dreams. But for so many people,
No.
just basic survival is a daily struggle.
Yes, it really puts things in perspective.
For sure. So this leads Marco and Zara to talk about relationships.
Okay.
Specifically, that age-old question of whether money can buy love.
Right.
They share a couple of stories that really highlight the complex dynamics between, finances and romance.
Yeah.
One story that really stuck with me
Yeah.
was about a girl who chooses a rich husband over someone she truly loved,
Oh, wow.
thinking that wealth would equal happiness.
It's a familiar tale, isn't it?
It is.
That allure of financial security, especially in a society where we often equate wealth with success and happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
But as the story unfolds, we see that it's not that simple.
No, it's never that simple, is it?
It's not.
What happened?
Well, she ends up miserable.
Oh.
Her husband is more interested in his businesses than in her,
Oh, no.
and she ends up feeling lonely and neglected
Yeah.
despite all the money that surrounds her.
Right, so money might create a comfortable life, but it doesn't guarantee genuine connection or emotional fulfillment.
I think that's a really important point.
Right.
It's like, it's not about the money itself. It's about what we associate it with and how it affects our priorities.
Absolutely. And to further illustrate this, Marco and Zara share another story, this one a bit more hopeful.
Okay.
It's about a couple who are deeply in love,
Okay.
but they're facing financial hardship.
I see.
The husband loses his job,
Oh.
they're running out of savings, and things are looking really tough for them.
Yeah.
And it really puts a strain on their relationship.
The classic love conquers all scenario.
But in all seriousness,
Yeah.
facing adversity together can really forge a stronger bond between people.
For sure.
What's important is how the couple responds to the challenge.
Right.
If they face it as a team
Yeah.
with mutual support, understanding, it can actually strengthen their connection.
And that's exactly what happens in this story.
Oh, good.
They both work hard,
Yeah.
they support each other, and eventually they get back on their feet.
That's great.
It really challenges that idea that financial stability is the be-all and end-all of a relationship.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Hearing that story made me think about what Marco said earlier. Something that might sound a bit cynical at first.
Okay.
He said, you cannot marry someone who doesn't have a stable job or solid plans.
While it might sound harsh,
Yeah.
It does reflect a certain practical reality.
Right.
Financial stability.
Yeah.
It's often seen as a sign of responsibility and the ability to provide,
For sure.
which can be incredibly important,
Yeah.
especially when you're considering long-term commitments like marriage.
That's a good point. It seems like money, whether we like it or not,
Mm.
plays a role in how we view potential partners.
It adds a layer of complexity for sure.
Definitely. And speaking of complexity,
Yes.
Marco and Zara also talk about how finances affect so many of our daily choices,
Mm-hmm.
from where we live
Yeah.
to the kind of education we can afford for our kids.
These are huge decisions
They,
that shape our lives.
yeah,
And money often plays a significant role.
right. And Zara makes this really interesting observation about what she calls the magnetic pull of money.
Oh, interesting.
She noticed that when you're financially well off, people, even family,
Mm-hmm.
tend to gravitate towards you, seeking help or wanting to be closer.
That's fascinating. It speaks to the complex social dynamics that
Mhm.
surround wealth.
Yeah.
There's that pressure to share resources,
Mm-hmm.
expectations of generosity,
Yeah.
even a sense of obligation that can be tough to handle.
For sure. It's like, on one hand, it's natural to want to help loved ones who are struggling,
Yeah.
but it can be hard to know if people are genuinely interested in you
Yeah.
or just in what you can provide for them.
Exactly. And then there's the flip side, people who may distance themselves
Right.
because they feel financially inferior or worry about appearing opportunistic.
Exactly.
Money can create a whole web of complexities in our relationships.
A lot to consider.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, even with all these potential issues, Marco and Zara still have dreams for the future.
Yeah.
Things like buying a car or a house for their parents.
Okay.
These aspirations are clearly driven by love
Mm-hmm.
and a desire to provide for their loved ones.
It's a reminder that financial goals can be powerful motivators,
For sure.
often rooted in a deep care for our families.
I love that perspective. It really highlights how money, even when it creates challenges,
Yeah.
can inspire us to strive for something better, not just for ourselves, but for the people we care about.
It's about finding that balance
Right.
between striving for financial security and nurturing the things that truly matter.
Such a good point. And speaking of balance, our friends bring up something we often overlook
Okay.
in the pursuit of financial goals.
Yeah.
Time. Oh, time, the ultimate equalizer.
Right.
Yeah.
We all have the same 24 hours,
We do.
regardless of our income.
Exactly.
And like they say, you can't buy back time.
You can.
It's a powerful reminder to prioritize the things that matter most.
Absolutely.
Our health, our relationships, our passions.
Those are the things that money can't buy.
Exactly. It seems like this conversation is taking us down a path of exploring values and priorities.
It is, and this is where things get really interesting.
It's fascinating how Marco and Zara, they started with just a casual conversation about money, and then they ended up, kind of exploring these really big life questions.
It really is, and it's interesting how organically they shift from, those practicalities of finances to dissecting their impact on our values, our priorities, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they even share a story about someone who was so focused on work and earning money that they ended up sacrificing their well-being.
Oh, wow.
This person, became isolated, their health suffered, and ultimately they missed out on all the richness of life that happens outside of work.
It's a classic cautionary tale, right? We often hear these stories of people achieving great financial success, but then they end up deeply unhappy.
Right.
And I think it reminds us that anything we pursue in life, whether it's wealth or career goals or anything else, it shouldn't come at the expense of our mental or physical health.
I think that's where the idea of balance comes in.
Right.
It's not about, saying money is bad or ambition is bad. It's more about recognizing that real fulfillment comes from nurturing all the different parts of our lives.
Exactly. And it's interesting how this connects back to their point about the magnetic pull of money.
Yes.
When financial success becomes the primary way we measure our worth,
Yeah.
it can really distort how we see relationships.
Yeah.
It becomes hard to tell what's a genuine connection.
And what's motivated by, other things.
It makes you think, how much of what we see in our relationships is actually influenced by these financial dynamics, even subconsciously.
It's definitely something to think about,
It is.
because I think we're all susceptible to these societal pressures and expectations, even if we don't realize it.
So how do we navigate this, this whole complicated relationship between wanting financial success, but also genuine happiness and fulfilling connections? How do we do that?
It's a question that doesn't have one easy answer,
Right.
But I think what we can learn from Marco and Zara is the importance of being aware.
Mm-hmm.
recognizing how money affects us.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our behaviors, our relationships.
Right.
That's really the first step.
Yeah, I love that. Becoming more mindful of how money impacts our lives, both the good and the bad.
Exactly. And once we have that awareness,
Yeah.
we can start making better choices.
Mm-hmm.
Choices that are aligned with our values and our
Mm-hmm.
priorities, not just what other people expect of us. It's so hard, though, right? There's this pressure, especially these days, to constantly be striving for more,
There is.
to achieve a certain level of financial success.
Mm,
But I think it's crucial to figure out what success means to us
yes.
individually, not what society tells us it should be.
I completely agree. And part of that is realizing that money is a tool.
Yeah.
It's a means to an end, not the end itself.
Right.
It's about understanding what we truly value
Yeah.
and using money as a way to support those values.
That's a great way to think about it. It's not just about, having more and more money.
Right.
It's about using it to achieve the things that really matter to us.
Exactly. And sometimes those things have nothing to do with money at all, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's spending time with loved ones. Maybe it's pursuing a passion. Maybe it's giving back to your community, things like that.
Those are the things that really make life rich, don't they?
They do.
And often they require a different kind of investment,
They do.
like an investment of our time, our energy, our emotions.
Right. It's not always about financial investment.
It's interesting how Marco and Zara, without really saying it directly,
Yeah.
they highlight this difference between different kinds of investment.
They do, and it's something we should all be thinking about.
Yeah,
How are we investing not just our money,
right.
but our time,
Yes.
our energy, our skills
Wow.
to build a life that feels truly fulfilling?
That's such a great question. It's not about those traditional measures of success.
Right.
It's about thinking what actually matters to me, what
Yeah.
brings me joy, what gives my life a sense of purpose and connection.
And once we understand those values,
Yes.
we can start making choices that reflect them,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what pressures or expectations are out there.
It's about taking control of our own stories and creating a life that feels true to who we are, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting.
It's amazing how they just started with like an English lesson.
Right.
And it became this insightful look at money and how it affects us,
It really is. It shows how these deep conversations can pop up in the most unexpected places.
Yeah.
And how talking to each other, really listening,
Yeah.
can help us see these complex issues from all sides.
I loved how they ended their chat
Oh, yeah.
by asking their audience,
Mm.
what's your point of view on money?
Right.
It's like they're inviting everyone to join the conversation.
It is.
About how money shapes our choices, our
Mm.
relationships, even our happiness.
And it's an invitation I think we should all accept.
For sure.
Ask ourselves regularly, how do we see money? What are our goals with it?
Hmm.
But even more importantly, how do those goals fit with our values, with what we want out of life?
I think that's key. It's not about judging what others do
Mm.
or saying there's only one right way.
No, not at all.
It's about making conscious choices about our finances,
Exactly.
thinking it through.
Yeah, because in the end, money's a powerful tool, right? It can be used for good, but it can also lead to, unhealthy attachments or bad situations.
We could.
It all comes down to how we use it and how much we let it control our priorities and relationships.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
we want to ask you, the listener, that same question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on money in your life?
Yeah.
How do you balance your financial goals with other things that matter, like relationships, health, personal fulfillment?
It's a conversation worth having, not just with yourself, but with your family, your friends, even in your community.
Yeah.
The more we understand our own feelings about money, the better we can make choices that align with what we truly value.
It's about living a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
Exactly.
And who knows, maybe those conversations will spark even more insights and discoveries along the way.
You never know.
That's all for today's deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.